بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, hayyakum Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless your time. And may Allah Azza wa Jal accept our good deeds in this holy month of Ramadan. So inshallah we will continue our journey with the 10 readings of the Holy Qur'an, and today is the fourth meeting, and we would like to talk about two, inshallah, qaris, two of the Qur'an. Last time we talked about the qari of Abi Amr al-Basri from Basra, and the other one was Ibn Amr from Ash-Sham, from Damascus. This time, inshallah, we will talk about two qaris from the Kufa school from Iraq. And the qaris are Asim, who is the Sheikh of Hafs and Asim. That's the most popular qira'ah or riwayah in the globe. And we will also talk about another qari from Kufa, though he's not as popular as Asim, but his recitation is very beautiful, and so many people love to hear the recitation of Hamza. Inshallah, we will recite Surah Al-Fatiha at the end in Asim, and also we will recite it in Hamza as well. SubhanAllah, we have two more meetings, and the program will be over. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that now we reached more than halfway to bless us all with this knowledge. It's a heavy message, really, to talk when we talk about Qur'an. As Allah Azza wa Jalla said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila." He said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the very beginning of the revelation, when he revealed Surah Al-Muzammil, he said, "Indeed, O Muhammad, we are revealing to you a heavy speech." And the ulama say it's heavy in its command, it's heavy in its rhetorical speech, in the language, in the diction, in every aspect. The Qur'an is, subhanAllah, the message that Allah Azza wa Jalla sent to us, and it's different from any other text that we read. So now we're talking about the different ways of reciting this book, the Word of God. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to engulf us all with the people of Qur'an on the Day of Judgment, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who recite the Holy Qur'an, يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. You know, one of the reasons in which we can gain complete faith is when we recite the Qur'an in the best manner. And reciting the Qur'an in the best way, this entails reciting it in all dialects. That this is part of the perfection of reciting the Qur'an, that you're not just reciting it with one riwayah and one tafsir, but you are going out of this box and you're learning other riwayat and other qira'at, because as we said before, these other qira'at, they do not just have pronunciation differences, but also they add up to the meaning, to the beauty of the message of Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is part of the haqqa tilawatihi. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us among them. So just as to review, last time we said the Hamza, some scholars do not consider it as a letter. And this is because it was invented later on by a scholar named Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi. Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, my dear brothers and sisters, is one of the students of Nasr ibn Asim al-Laythi, sorry, Nasr ibn Asim al-Laythi, or difficult names. And then this Nasr ibn Asim al-Laythi is the student of Sibawayh Shaykh al-Qurra, subhanAllah, al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi is the student of Nasr ibn Asim al-Laythi, who is the student of Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali. That's the name. Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali is the head of all. He is the king of the grammar, as we said before. And he taught them what to do in terms of tajweed, diacritical marks, in terms of grammar rules. So he was the king of the Arabic grammar, rahimahullah. So the Quran back in the time, this is like some scripts from the Uthmanic writing that, as you see here, there are no use of diacritical marks. There is no use of mudud, like the med sign. There's no use of the verse numbers or the surah names. But Uthman ibn Affan wrote it in this way, and then the scholars added some of the beauty of it by creating some diacritical marks, some extra letters, like the small alif, the small waw, the small ya, to make it easy for us to recite. And this is one of the things that we should be pleased for. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who recount these blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal. This slide is also very important because it teaches us that, subhanAllah, my dear brothers and sisters, when the Quran was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ was next to the people. Like, imagine whenever they have any issue with the pronunciation of a word or the understanding one of the meaning of the verses, they would go to the Prophet ﷺ. They would go to his house and ask him, Ya Rasulullah, what does Allah here mean? And then if the Prophet doesn't know, Jibreel alayhi salam will come by the permission of Allah, and he will explain those verses or teach the Prophet how to say it. So it was really easy for them. But when the Prophet ﷺ passed away and the battle of Yamama occurred, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was really worried that a number of expert reciters passed away in that battle. So Umar ibn al-Khattab, he went right away. He was running to Abu Bakr and he said, Abu Bakr, we need to compile the Quran. And when they compiled the Quran, they had only one copy, which they kept with Hafsa, the daughter of Umar radiallahu anhu. And also, my dear brothers and sisters, she's the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Uthman ibn Affan, as you see here in this graph, that he did an incredible job. He distributed 7 Qur'ans, which he wrote himself. Can you imagine, like, you write the Quran 7 times? SubhanAllah, what a great barakah, what a great blessing that Allah Azza wa Jal gives to a believer, to the point that they do incredible job, like writing 7 copies of the Holy Quran. One of the great writers, most popular writer of the Quran nowadays, Sheikh Taha Uthman, Hafidhahullah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect him. He wrote so many copies of the Holy Quran, and in one of his interview, he said, I spent 2 years to complete a Mus'haf. Like, he spends 2 years writing the Mus'haf from the beginning to the end. So it is not an easy thing. Now the scholars, when they teach Quran, they advise the shuyukh, the Quran teachers, to teach their students how to write the Quran as they memorize. And this is something that has been adopted in many Muslim countries, and where they bring a piece of wood, is called a lawh, and they write on the lawh, on the wood. And when they're done, they give it to the teacher. The teacher will correct if there are any mistakes, and then they will memorize from that piece of wood that they wrote. When they recite it to the teacher the other day, they will wash it, like erase it, and they will write the next page. So this is very beautiful way to kind of helps you memorize the Quran better and strengthens your memorization of the Holy Quran. Uthman ibn Affan, it was narrated that he used to recite the Quran, the whole Quran, like the entire Quran, in one day. Allahu Akbar. So this is something that, subhanAllah, the barakah that we can see in his life. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant us that barakah, that we become very productive in our lives. Whatever we do in this life, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise the level of productivity, that we can be beneficial to ourselves and to our community, inshallah. So Uthman ibn Affan, he sent one expert reciter to each of these areas to teach them the Holy Quran perfectly. And these are the names of the people or the scholars who went, and there are followers who went to teach the people in Kufa, Basra, Medina, Mecca, Bahrain, Yemen, and Ash-Sham. Going to the next slide. I'm presenting this slide again just to make sure that we understand the difference between the 7 letters of the Qur'an. You know, the Prophet ﷺ in one hadith, he says, نزل القرآن على سبعة أحرف, that the Qur'an was revealed on 7 dialects. Like the Qur'an was revealed in 7 dialects. And people now don't talk about these anymore. They talk about the 10 readings of the Holy Qur'an. And the question is, what is the difference between the 10 readings and the 7 dialects? It's so simple. If you look here, 7 dialects and 10 readings, the boxes that are in beige color, these are the 7 dialects. And then the boxes in pink, these are the 10 readings. So if you look at Mecca, starting from left to right, Mecca, the city of Mecca, this is one of the dialects, this is one of the regions. So the dialect refers to a region, okay? And then when we say the readings, refer to what? To a person. So make it that symbol. So you say, what the dialects refer to regions. What are these regions? There's 7. Mecca, Medina, Basra, Kufa, Ash-Sham, Yemen, and Bahrain. And then the 10 readings, they refer to the Qaris, the people themselves, Ibn Kathir, Nafi', and these people came from these areas, from these dialects, from these regions. In Mecca, we see 1 Qari. In Medina, we see 2. In Basra, we see 2. In Kufa, 4. In Ash-Sham, 1. But in Yemen and Bahrain, even though Uthman ibn Affan sent expert reciters to these areas, but their recitation or their reading was not that popular to be known among the historians and the narrators of the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but Imam al-Jazari, my dear brothers and sisters, in his time, Imam Muhammad ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah, when he came, he went to so many places just getting to know the total number of the readings. Like, he was very curious to know about the different ways of reciting the Holy Quran. So he went to different shuyukh, different teachers of Quran to learn from them the Quran. And he concluded with this. He said, I found so many, like over 10 readings, not just 10, over 10. And he said, and I don't know which one is authentic or not, so I created my rubric. So he created a rubric, and he said, whatever qira'ah fulfills the rubric, then it will be considered an authentic reading of the Holy Quran. What is this rubric? So this rubric, he said, وَكُلُّ مَا وَافَقَ وَجْهَ نَحْوِ وَكَانَ لِلرَّسْمِ احْتِمَالًا يَحْوِي وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادًا هُوَ الْقُرْآنُ فَهَذِهِ الثَّلَاثَةُ الْأَرْكَانُ. He said 3 rules, so simple, so easy. Number 1, the reading of that region must be grammatically correct. So it must have all the syntactic Arabic rule. It has a subject, a verb, a preposition, an adverb. The diacritical marks are correctly, the case markings, they represent the function of the sentence. So that's number 1, so grammatically correct. And then number 2, وَكَانَ لِلرَّسْمِ احْتِمَالًا يَحْوِي, meaning that this word, the pronunciation of this word is identical to the script of the writing that we have today. It is identical to the script of the authentic Quran that we have today. So he means in his time. Then the third one, he said, وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادًا هُوَ الْقُرْآنُ, and it has a connected chain of narration to the Prophet ﷺ. Meaning, if a person came and he said, well, this is a new qira'ah, listen to my qira'ah, and it is grammatically correct. And number 2, that it is written in the script, but it has no connected chain to the Prophet ﷺ. And what I mean here is a chain of narration, like a transmission of the message from one reliable person to another reliable person, and so on, starting from the Prophet ﷺ to this person that is speaking. So If that person does not have a connected chain of transmission, his recitation will be invalid. It will be weakened and it will not be considered among the 10 readings. So this is so simple. SubhanAllah, Imam Muhammad ibn al-Jazari, he made this rubric, and his outcomes and his findings concluded that only 10 readings of the Holy Quran that fulfill these three conditions. And we see them today that our world know. There are some other Qur'an which the scholars, there are some other readings other than the 10, which the scholars refer to as al-qira'at al-shadha. They call it the odd readings, meaning that it is not from the, like strange, they call it strange readings. They have a weakness in them, either one of the three conditions, with the script, the transmission, or the grammar. So now we understand the difference between the qira'at and the seven ahruf or dialects. Now, fifth qari, my dear brothers and sisters. Now, this qari is the most popular in the world. His name is Asim al-Kufi from Kufa. And the two rawis are Hafs, which we recite Hafs, and then the other one is Shu'ba. And in the order they mention Shu'ba before Hafs. In the order they mention Shu'ba before Hafs. And the reason is because it really depends on the shaykh. Like their shaykh, when the teacher has two students, and then they tell him who are your students, he would start with a name of one student before the other. And the wisdom behind it, maybe because he's like referring to that this person is take from him he's number one, and then this is number two. In terms of eloquency, in terms of proficiency, we talk about Shu'ba more than Hafs. Asim is the qari, he is the teacher. Hafs and Shu'ba, these two are rawi, means narrator. The yellow boxes at the bottom, these are turuq, ways, like students. We translate it as students, tariq. These are the students of the rawi. And then the yellow box at the bottom right corner, it is the wajh and the way. For example, if you want to talk about Hafs, there are 21 ways to recite Hafs from Tariq Tayyibat al-Nashr, from the Al-Jazari way. Now let us talk about the history of the Quran in Kufa, in Iraq. How did it start? Who was the first person to teach the Quran in Kufa? So I summarized this in bullet points so that we can follow inshallah easily. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he's one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. He was sent by Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu to teach the people of Kufa the Quran. So it started with a companion, by the permission of a companion who was a caliph and a leader of the Muslim nation, to teach the Kufa the Quran and also to educate them about Islam. When Uthman ibn Affan, the one who wrote the 8 copies, when he arrived to Al-Kufa, he found out that people had many disagreements about some of the verses of the Quran. What does that mean? It means when they recite a certain verse, then another person will recite it differently. So Uthman ibn Affan said, wait a minute, what are you doing? Because I recited the Quran to the Prophet, I taught other companions, I am a reliable source, and I have a connected chain of narration to the Prophet. What are you talking about? What you're saying is wrong. This is incorrectly pronounced or incorrectly understood. So Uthman ibn Affan, he started to correct those people of Kufa, and he said, you know what? I'm going to give you my authentic copy to use. And then he said, with the one permission, he said, under one condition. And they said, what is your condition? He said, my condition is to burn all the mushafs that you have, so that we avoid this confusion. because I'm afraid if I give you my mushaf, then these disputes will go higher. People like say, oh, Uthman ibn Affan said this, mine says that. He says, under that one condition, if you trust me, then burn your mushafs, and here's one copy that you can use. So at first, the Kufis, they went against this idea. He said, what are you saying? These are the words of God, and we got them from companions, from followers. We're not going to burn any of these masahif, and they continue to use them. And then the first person to use the copy of Uthman ibn Affan, he raised his hand. His name is Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulami. Remember this name. So out of all the people of Kufa, he stood up, and he's very dedicated qari. He said, I'm going to use that copy. And he recited most of the Qur'an to Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. And also he was also a student of Zayd ibn Thabit, one of the writers of the Wahy, one of the writers of the revelation of the Qur'an for 13 years, not just for 1 or 2 years. When you have a PhD degree, you study for 6, 7, 8 years. So it's a great accomplishment, right? And here it's like double the PhD period. He's spent so many years with Zayd ibn Thabit, who is a close companion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also recited to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he became the teacher of his 2 children, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein. So you see, my dear brothers and sisters, subhanallah. When the people of Kufa refused to use the script and the Qur'an of Uthman ibn Affan, Allah Azza wa Jal replaced all of them with a great scholar. And this proves the verse in the Holy Qur'an, وَإِن تَتَوَلَّوْا يَسْتَبْدِلْ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. If you refuse, Allah is going to replace you with people who will be better than you and who will listen to the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Subhanallah, Wallahu Akbar. So Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulami, he stood up and he said, you know what, I'm going to recite to you Uthman many times, I'm going to recite to Zayd, I'm going to recite to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and because of this dedication that they found in him, they said, you're going to be the most popular reciter of Al-Kufa, and they assigned him to be the Sheikh of Al-Kufa. The Kufis then were convinced after he became very popular, and they said, oh, we're going to listen and take those copies, and then they burnt all those unauthentic Qur'an that they have, or scripts or materials in which they wrote the Qur'an on. Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulami continued teaching the Qur'an in Al-Kufa for 40 years. Allahu Akbar, 40 years teaching the Holy Qur'an. The number 40 came many times in this program, in this circle. When he passed away, his recitation was adopted by a great scholar, Asim ibn Abi al-Najud. Okay, so Asim, who died in 128 after Hijrah, who had the most beautiful recitation in his time. The 2 scholars who inherited Asim's qira'ah are Hafs. So you see, my dear brothers and sisters, we talk about Hafs. Who is the Shaykh of Hafs? Asim. Where did Asim came from? He came from that giant scholar, whose name is Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulami, who stood up, who was in the forefront in Kufa. Allahu Akbar. That is the blessed silsila, the blessed series of scholars. When one person is blessed by Allah, then the remaining of that series is blessed as well. Allahu Akbar. Then Allah Azza wa Jal made him teach 2 rawis. The first one is Hafs ibn Sulaiman ibn al-Mughira al-Asadi al-Kufi, who was born in 90 after Hijrah and passed away in 180. So he lived for 90 years. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us not the length in age, but also, my dear brothers and sisters, the barakah in the age. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us barakah in our age. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. And the other rawi is Shu'ba ibn Ayyash ibn Salih, who was born in 95. So he is younger than Hafs, and he died in 193 after Hijrah. He lived for 98 years. Hafs was an excellent reciter of the Holy Quran, who was also a great imam. After teaching the Holy Quran in Kufa for almost 20 years, he traveled to Mecca, Medina, Egypt, where his riwayah became very popular. But the reason, as I told you, the popularity of the riwayah of Hafs is due to the Uthmanic state when they decided to make the Hafs riwayah the former riwayah of the Holy Quran. And Shu'bah, the other Rawi, when we talk about Shu'bah, was a Hannat. What does it mean? Hannat is a wheat seller. Allah. So, like it's so beautiful. Like when we talk about these Rawis and these Mashayikh, we think like these people, like they spend their entire time learning Quran, but Allah Azza wa Jalla gave them the barakah, because when we see all the accomplishments that they made, like, how could they have enough time or extra time to do some other activities? But Shu'bah was a Hannat, he was a wheat seller. They were businessmen, they were traders. And Allah Azza wa Jalla blessed them, because they are not just reciting Quran and seeking the ilm, but also they are helping others, and they're working for the sake of their families and their communities and helping the Muslim nation. So this is such a beautiful lesson for us to take. So he was a wheat seller. He recited the Quran 3 times to Asim, his Shaykh Asim, and he was also a muhaddith. Allahu Akbar. Muhaddith is not a simple term to say I'm a muhaddith. I think only few scholars nowadays who are muhaddithin. Muhaddith, someone who reached the highest level in hadith, like he memorized all the hadith, all the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, and he has the authority to review and revise the chain of narration for each hadith, and he can give fatwa, he can give recommendations about certain hadiths, whether they are weak or strong. So in Muhaddith, he was a narrator of hadith, and his name is mentioned a lot in authentic Bukhari. Allahu Akbar. If you go to Sahih Bukhari, you're going to see his name. Inshallah. So he was not just included in the Quran chain of narration, but he was also included in the hadith. Allahu Akbar. Al-Dhahabi, one of the great scholars of Islam, he said, he recited the Quran 24,000 times. Allahu Akbar, in Kufa. Not like some of us say, well, I recited the Quran 3 times in the month of Ramadan, and we're so happy. And subhanAllah. And here he's just referring to Kufa. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That he recited the Quran 24,000 times. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Like, so beautiful. Like I prepared this, but as I'm reading it to you, it feels like very emotional and very spiritual, subhanAllah. Because the more you recite Quran, the closer you get to the robe of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the more reflections you have on the Quran. Wow. So ثلاثة من كوفة فعاصم فعنه شعبة وحفص قائم. This is a line quoted from طيبة النشر في القراءات العشر by Imam al-Jazari. He says, ثلاثة من كوفة فعاصم, 3 people from Kufa, عاصم فعنه شعبة وحفص قائم. Asim, Shu'bah, and Hafs. The first one is Asim, whose Rawis are Shu'bah and Hafs. To summarize, Asim Kufi, the one in pink box, is the Qari, the teacher, and then the 2 Rawis are Shu'bah and Hafs. So you see, my dear brothers and sisters, the rule is so simple. It is like, for every Qari, there are 2 Rawis. And when we talk about, if you want to recite the Quran, okay, you want to recite the Quran, first thing you ask yourself, what qira'ah am I choosing? So I'm referring here to the pink box. Oh, I'm referring to Asim. Okay, Asim, good job. Now, which riwayah of Asim? Shu'bah or Hafs? Because they're pronounced differently. So you say, well, I'm doing Hafs. And Hafs, this is the riwayah that we recite in our nightly juz' recitation, that is recited recited mostly in all parts of the world. The next Qari and the next teacher is number 6. The 6th teacher is Hamza. Remember this name? He's not Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. Don't confuse him with Hamza the companion. He is Hamza, the Rawi of the Qira'ah. He is the Qari, the teacher. And Hamza, he is one of the teachers of Kufa. And his two Rawis are Khalaf and Khalad. And there are four students that took from their narrators. And then there are wajh and ways, different ways to recite. If you see here, I'm not giving you like detailed explanation of each name, and because our goal is not to really study the different ways of reciting that single riwayah. This is another science because it takes a lot of time, and it's helpful for those who memorize the Qur'an. But for us, we want to just understand the outline, like the scheme of the Qur'an, where they came from, what was the reason for the different readings, what are their names. So this is what the objective of this program is. So number 6, Qari Hamza al-Kufi. Hamza is the second renowned Qari in Kufa. After whom? Who's the first? First one is Asim. Asim was born in 90 Hijri. Remember the date? So Asim ibn Habib. Okay, Ibn Habib al-Zayyat. That's his name. Hamza ibn Habib al-Zayyat. That's the second Qari, the second teacher in Kufa. Born in 80 Hijri, died in 156. His nickname, Abu Umar al-Kufi, or you can refer to it as his pin name. They used to have pin names during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and it continued later on, hundreds of years after. But nowadays, only a few countries use it. Only a few Muslim countries use the pin name. Now, the two Rawis are Khalaf ibn Hisham al-Bazzar al-Asadi. So Khalaf ibn Hisham al-Asadi was born in 150. So now we're moving to 100 of Hijri. And died in 229 after Hijrah. He was the second popular Imam after Al-Kisa'i. And he finished memorizing the Quran when he was 10 years old. Today we have a lot of people who finish the Quran at the age of 5, 6, 7. Alhamdulillah Azza wa Jal. This is the barakah of Allah Azza wa Jal, and He wants us to reflect on it. That Allah Azza wa Jal still chooses people to carry that message. Because the Quran has been promised by Allah to be preserved and protected. And Allah Azza wa Jal is going to carry out that message until the end of this world. Then he went to seek Islamic and Arabic studies. It was narrated that he had a confusion on one of the lessons of the Arabic grammar, and he paid 80,000 dirhams to clear that confusion. He inherited the qira'ah of Hamza through Sulaym. So just one example is sufficient for his dedication and his love to the Quran. He had a confusion in one of the lessons. So, like, he had a confusion in one of the lessons of the Arabic grammar, and he paid 80,000 dirhams to clear that confusion. It means like he traveled. He did not like pay for the piece of information. No, but he used his money to travel to other places of the world, to other schools, and he paid so much in order to clear one confusion that he had in the Arabic grammar. Allahu Akbar. وَحَمْزَةُ عَنْهُ سُلَيْمٌ فَخَلَفْ مِنْهُ وَخَلَّادٌ كِلَاهُمَا اغْتَرَفْ. So Hamza is the Qari, the teacher. عَنْهُ سُلَيْمٌ فَخَلَفْ. So through Sulaym, so Khalaf and Khalad, they learned through Sulaym. They took or they inherited the qira'ah of Hamza through Sulaym. You remember that I talked about this before, like some Rawis, they do not learn the riwayah directly from the Qari, but there is like a mediator between the two. And these two Rawis, they learned through Sulaym the qira'ah. Now the second Rawi is Khalad. So now we talked about Khalaf. Now Khalad ibn Khalid, born 119, passed away 220, and his nickname is Abu Isa, or his pen name is Abu Isa. It could be that his son is Isa, or it could also be that it's just a pen name. And he also inherited the qira'ah of Hamza through Sulaym. Again, this is very important, my dear brothers and sisters, because some people think, oh, Khalaf Khalad, they learn directly from Hamza. No, wait a minute. Not all rawis learn directly from their qari. There are some rawis, like for example, if you remember when we talked about Qunbul and Al-Bazzi, we said that there are 7 people between them, between Qunbul or Al-Bazzi. So make sure that you understand that part. For Hamza, so listen to what Imam Al-Shatibi rahimahullah says, وَحَمْزَةُ مَا أَزْكَاهُ مِنْ مُتَوَرِّعٍ إِمَامًا صَبُورًا لِلْقُرْآنِ مُرَتِّلًا. Allahu Akbar, so beautiful. Hamza, مَا أَزْكَاهُ مِنْ مُتَوَرِّعٍ. You know, the shakhs al-mutawarri', my dear brothers and sisters, is the one who gives everything he loves for the sake of pleasing others. It's like he owns it, he loves it dearly, but he gives it to others. That's kind of al-wara. Ma azkahu. He is zaki, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is always in need of Allah azza wa jal. And Allah, and everyone muzakka, everyone talks about his generosity, his knowledge. That's the Qari Hamza. Imaman, he was an imam. Saburan, patient imam. Lil Qur'ani murattila, and he was an excellent reciter of the Quran. روى خلف عنه وخلاد الذي رواه سليم متقنا ومحصلا. Where the 2 rawis, Khalaf and Khalad, learned from him through Sulaym, who was very eloquent. And muhassala means like well acquainted with the knowledge of the Quran. His recitation is so close to Khalaf. So the 2 rawis' recitation are kind of close to each other in Hamza and Imala. To summarize, this is the outline: Hamza, Khalaf, and Khalaf. And by the way, Khalaf, the one to the left, he's not just a rawi. We will talk about him, inshallah, in the last meeting. There's this student, this narrator, he said, well, I'm now a rawi, but you know what? I'm going to teach 2 more students and I will become a qari. So he went from the level of a narrator to a level of a teacher. That he went to that higher rank. And we will talk about the reason why he did that, inshallah, when we meet in the last meeting, inshallah ta'ala. Now we will conclude with the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha. So we're going to recite Surah Al-Fatiha in the riwayah of Asim, Hafs and Shu'bah. When I say riwayah, I refer to Asim and Shu'bah, Hafs and Shu'bah. And when I say qira'ah, and I refer to Asim. So I'll start with Asim, inshallah. And Asim, the 2 rawis of Asim, they recite Surah Al-Fatiha exactly the same. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So now we finished 1 qari. This is how the qari Asim with his 2 rawis recite Surah Al-Fatiha, which is the same exact way we recite, because we recite in their reading. Now the other one, we want to recite it in Hamza al-Kufi, whose rawis are Khalaf and Khalad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Pay attention to the colors. The green one stands for Khalaf and the yellow stands for Khalad. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. It's the same as other qaris. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. I didn't say Maliki. I said Maliki, and Maliki means the judge, the king. Maliki means the owner. And the two meanings complete each other. So the two Rawis, Khalaf and Khalad, they recite as Malik. They say the king of the Day of Judgment. Next ayah, number 5. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Sorry. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Not الصراط, الصراط. What does they do here? They say النطق بالصاد مشماتا صوت الزاي. So you pronounce صاد with a little bit of taste of the letter zay. So it's a mix of sad and zay. Azza. Azza. So you say sa, za. It's a mix of sad and zay. This is how they recite it. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. You can practice it after me. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. الزي زي زي زي. Next ayah, number 7. We will start with Khalaf because Khalaf is the only Rawi. He does Zirata. But for Khalad, the yellow one, we don't see the yellow line here because Khalad only does it to the first one. SubhanAllah. So these rules are not like kind of grammar rules where you measure it, where you say, oh, Khalad, Khalad and Khalab, they say Zirata in all the Qur'an. No, wait a minute. In just some words. It is not something that's qiyasi, the scholars say. In al-qira'at la tuqas, just like the Arabic grammar or like subject verb. No. There are so many exceptions. It's not something that can be measured. So only Khalaf does the second sirat. Okay, but Khalad does the first one only. Khalaf does the two of them. So we say Zirata. That's for Khalaf. And then Khalad, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. أنعمت عليهم. I put a dhamma on the letter ha, not alayhim. I said alayhum. That's for both. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين يا رب العالمين. So that's the reading of Hamza for both the two Rawis. So inshallah ta'ala, for next meeting, next Monday, we will talk about the two Qaris, the next two Qaris, and they're going to be Al-Kisai, who is from Kufa, and Abu Ja'far from Medina. So inshallah, I will see you on May 11th. Jazakum Allahu khairan, everyone. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.